Once upon a time, in a sunny valley, there lived a little lamb named Rebecca. She was white with black spots, black feet, and sad eyes. Rebecca felt sad when she saw the other lambs with snow-white wool and no spots. She felt sad when she saw the other sheep with their moms and their dads because she didn't have a mom or a dad. But she felt the saddest when she saw the other lambs running and jumping because she couldn't. Rebecca had been born with one leg that didn't work right. She was crippled. She had always limped when she walked. That's why she always watched while the other lambs ran and played. Rebecca felt sad and alone, except when Abigail was around.
Hello, how are you? I'm sad because I can't run and play like the other sheep.
Abigail was Rebecca's best friend. She didn't look like a friend for a lamb. She was an old cow. She was brown with white blotches that looked like rain puddles on a path. Her belly was as round as a barrel, and her voice was always kind and friendly. Some of Rebecca's favorite hours were spent with Abigail. They loved to pretend they were on adventures in the distant lands. Rebecca loved to listen to Abigail tell stories about the stars.
Let me tell you a story, okay?
They would spend hours on the hill looking into the valley. They were good friends, but even with a friend like Abigail, Rebecca still got sad. It made her sad to be the only lamb that could not run and jump and play in the grass. That's when Abigail would turn to her and say,
"Don't be sad, little Rebecca. God has a special place for those who feel left out."
Rebecca wanted to believe her, but it was hard. Some days she just felt alone. She really felt alone the day the shepherds decided to take the lambs to the next valley where there was more grass. The sheep had been in the valley so long that the ground was nearly bare.
Sheep are going to the new meadow. Well, we've been to the new meadow.
All the sheep were excited when the shepherd told them they were going to the new meadow. As they prepared to leave, Rebecca hobbled over and took her place on the edge of the group, but the others started laughing at her. "You're too slow to go all the way to the next valley. Go back, slowpoke. We'll never get there if we have to wait on you. Go back, Rebecca." That's when Rebecca looked up and saw the shepherd standing in front of her.
You're right, Rebecca. You better go back and play in there at the spring. The trip is too long for you.
Rebecca looked at the man for a long time. Then she turned slowly and began limping away. When Rebecca got to the top of the hill, she looked down and saw all the other sheep headed toward the green grass. Never before had she felt so left out. A big tear slipped out of her eye, rolled down her nose, and fell on a rock. Just then, she heard Abigail behind her, and Abigail said what she always said when Rebecca felt sad.
"Don't be sad, little Rebecca. God has a special place for those who feel left out."
Slowly, the two friends turned and walked to the stable together. By the time they got to the little barn, the sun was settling like a big orange ball. Rebecca and Abigail went inside and began to eat some hay out of the feed box.
Good.
They were very hungry, and the hay tasted good. For a little while, Rebecca forgot that she had been left behind.
Go to sleep, my dear friend. You've had a long day.
Abigail said after they finished eating. Rebecca was tired, so she lay down in the corner on some straw and closed her eyes. She felt Abigail lay down beside her, and she was glad to have Abigail as a friend. Soon, Rebecca was asleep. At first, she sat soundly, curled up against Abigail's back. In her sleep, she dreamed of running and jumping just like the other sheep. She dreamed of long walks with Abigail through the valley. She dreamed of being in a place where she never felt left out. Suddenly, a strange noise woke her up.
Abigail, wake up. I'm scared.
Abigail lifted her head and looked around. The stable was dark, except for a small lamp hanging on the wall.
Somebody is here.
Rebecca whispered. They looked across the stable. There, lying on some fresh hay in the feed box, was a baby. A young woman was resting on a big pile of hay beside the feed box. Rebecca looked at Abigail, thinking her friend could tell her what was going on. But Abigail was just as surprised as Rebecca. Rebecca looked again at the woman and the child, then limped across the stable. She stopped next to the mother and looked into the baby's face. The baby was crying. He was cold. The woman picked up the baby and put him on the hay next to her. Rebecca looked around the stable for something to keep the baby warm. Usually there were blankets, but not tonight. The shepherds had taken them. Then Rebecca remembered her own soft wool could keep the baby warm. So she curled up closely to the baby. The baby's mother said softly. Soon the little child stopped crying and went back to sleep. About that time, a man entered the stable carrying some rags.
I'm sorry, Mary. This is all that I can find. It's okay. The little lamb has kept you too warm. A key?
Rebecca looked at the baby and wondered who this might be.
His name is Jesus.
Mary spoke as if she knew Rebecca's question.
God's Son who came from heaven to teach us about God. Just then, there was another noise at the door. It was the shepherds. Their eyes were big, and they were excited. I saw a bright star. We are the angels. We want to meet the star that led the angels and the shepherds. Rebecca, do you know what this baby is? She does now.
It was the young mother who was speaking. She looked at Rebecca and smiled.
God had just all your prayers for the lamp, and this baby is the answer.
Rebecca looked down at the baby. Somehow she knew this was a special child, and this was a special moment. She also understood why she had been born with a crippled leg. Had she been like the other sheep, she would have been in the valley. But since she was different, she was in the stable among the first to welcome Jesus into the world. She turned and walked to Abigail and took her place beside her friend.
You're right. God does have a special place for me.
The end. Ready?
All of the angels